In today's episode, we sit down with Dr. Arnold and Roxy from Beverly Hills Babies, a specialized fertility clinic.
We talk about everything fertility and beyond. We talk about IVF. We talk about overall fertility for both men and women. We talk about surrogacy. We talk about third-party options, egg freezing. We go there.
Before we get into today's episode, please make sure you are subscribed to Camp Chaos on YouTube and rate and review us on Spotify and Apple. Without further ado, here is Dr. Arnold and Roxy.
Why do you think so many women today are experiencing infertility?
It has been a problem that's getting more common. So we're seeing, larger percentages of women needing to come to the clinic to get pregnant as opposed to just having sex like everyone used to do. And a big part of it is the age at which people are getting pregnant. So, people talk about the changes in the environment and how is that affecting people and changing sperm counts, which is also an issue. It's not just a women issue. And is it causing egg quality issues? But actually, the biggest thing is just the timing of things. Everything is shifted a little bit later than it used to be.
Women used to get pregnant 23, 24, 25. Now they're like late 30s of like, oh, I could still do this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, we see a pretty significant decline in fertility after you get past about 35, 36, definitely once you get past 40. And so a lot of the time now, the first baby we're seeing in your late 30s and, at least mid 30s. It's not unusual at all, right? And even for us, I mean, our babies were in your late 30s, right? So actually one was a 40, I think.
Excuse me, I was 39.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
all right. Okay.
Still had the 3 in the front.
Back here.
Relax over there.
But the point is, it's the kids are
Advanced
happening
maternal
later.
age is a factor.
Advanced maternal age. But then also on the male side too, you're seeing drops in sperm counts and testosterone levels in men across the board. And this is happening at a weird rate because it's a population trend that suggests there's something that's happening affecting male fertility too.
You're going to think I'm like crazy with all my conspiracies then. If you're like, oh no, it's just the age. I'm like, no, it's the environment. It's the pesticides.
Totally woo.
Are you with me? I'm woo woo.
Woo.
I'm like, okay, get woo woo with me.
I'm woo woo.
Well, and I was IVF with my 2 babies, and with my husband, I'm like, look, you're 50% of this. I knew I was PCOS, but I'm like, your underwear are too tight. Get out of the fucking jacuzzi. Like, what are you eating? Your phone's in your pocket. Like, you're drinking Red Bull. Like, which, by the way, is like probably my most disgusting hidden thing in my marriage is that my husband will drink a Red Bull. So gross. But I love that you're saying that it's not just the woman. It's like 50%.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that number is pretty accurate. About up to half of the cases in the clinic are male factor. And so it's extremely common and getting more common.
Why are we seeing like a decrease in testosterone in men? Is it because of their age as well? Because I feel like sometimes maybe like it's a couple years older, the husband is a couple years older, or is it environmental issues?
There's theories. No one knows for sure.
Right.
And there's active research in this area. But my feeling is it's probably something connected to environmental issues. Exactly what they are. People have pointed to plasticizers, things called phthalates that exist kind of.
Now you're talking my language.
Everywhere.
Let's go there.
Yeah. And, if you want to
talking dirty,
if you want to go really far with it, people have also started to wonder about the COVID vaccine. Now, this is real.
Controversial. We went there.
But
that is spicy.
But, all this stuff is unknown. So people are just kind of investigating. I mean, it is true that, we saw that even just the COVID virus, forget COVID vaccine, did affect male sperm counts, when you actively had an infection and, so there is some connection, but how much that continues on into the vaccine and that, who knows? But there's some environmental stuff that's been happening for sure. And it is affecting men.
You know what's so interesting though? A couple comes into the clinic and Arnold's saying almost half of the cases are men. Are male factor infertility. And yet a couple comes into the clinic, they sit down, and then the woman just starts unloading about herself.
It's all me,
and
it's
I
my
can't
fault.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And she's going on and on and on, and the man's just sitting there, and Arnold will come out of an appointment, and I'm like, how were they? And he'll say, I can't say for sure, but I'm almost 100% sure that it's male factor infertility. And I was like, how do you always know? And he's like, there's just little things when I look at, he says, I don't know how you do this, but he says when he looks at a man, there's things that he can often tell. And it's so funny because often we have a man sitting there, not saying anything, just letting his wife divulge all of this kind of story and trauma and experience, and she can't figure it out. he's not said anything. And Arnold's like, this girl's working out, doing Pilates, taking her supplements, doing all the things. Not this other guy. And then
he's eating too many chicken with estrogen. It's the chicken.
His inflammation is off the charts. Like he's inflamed, let's say. So I don't know how you know, but he always walks out and it's like, I think it's the man.
There are clues. If you're very, very unhealthy, right, that is reflected in your sperm. And so if you're, very overweight, very inactive, if you've even had a history of taking testosterone and taking certain things
like for working out
that you think is helping you and making you more virile or whatnot, it actually is completely shutting down your sperm counts, right? And so there's often some clue that it may not be all perfect on the male side. In fact, there's been some sort of chatter around using sperm counts as sort of like a male vital sign. The people have kind of brought that up. That that your sperm is so reflective of your general health. That needs to
be like on your Tinder profile, like give me your sperm count.
Exactly.
Oh, I love
morphology and motility. Is that what we test? Count morphology, motility.
Yeah, that's right.
What we test. I act like I'm in the sperm banks over
What's his name? My longevity guy, the famous one.
Which one?
Kim went to his house for dinner.
Oh my gosh!
Most famous longevity guy.
Yes, like can tell how long you're going to live.
No, wait, guys? How can we not remember? But one of his factors that he says so much about is sperm.
Sperm.
Yeah,
he talks all about male, like sperm being.
Now there are reasons for having low sperm counts that have nothing to do with you being healthy. So you can live a really healthy life.
Brian Johnson.
There are endogenous factors that affect sperm counts. So let's not chalk it all up to health, but taking care of yourself and living well definitely has an impact on sperm.
So let's talk about that. Stress. We obviously live in America where we're all overstressed and outside factors like what we're eating, environmental, like how are those playing into it? Or do we even know?
Yeah, I mean, so the main things are going to be, eating kind of a low glycemic load diet. So high sugar for both men and women causes oxidative stress. So that's why we talk about antioxidants, right? Stuff like that to try and mitigate that effect. Then you have activity. So blood flow is very important for both men and women. And, there's actually this interesting kind of workout that exists. These women from like Eastern Europe have been proponents of this, where you do this sort of pelvic workout where you try and increase blood flow into your pelvis. It's a lot of like kind of twisting, and I can't demonstrate it.
Like I said,
are you two
doing this over there?
I would love
at Beverly Hills Babies. There's exciting things happening.
When I was trying to get pregnant, it was 2019 going into 2020, so it was COVID. I had all the time in the world to do all the woo weird things, eating a warm diet, like, and when you think warm, not like just like soups, like warm like Chinese medicine.
Love it. We love traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah, I saw 4 different acupuncturists until I found my match that really gave me that euphoria. So the more woo-woo, the more pelvic floor dances, like I'm in it. I'm doing it. Hypno or what is the meditation that you do for welcoming baby? There's a special name for it, but
okay.
There's all sorts of things.
He's like, I believe you.
He works with all of these people. And like, I'd say traditional, like if you go into like a classic fertility clinic, no one's even scratching the surface of this stuff.
Right.
So it's just very, very unique. They just push you right into IVF. And it's just like interesting because there's just so much stuff happening over at our office that I find fascinating how they're solving problems. I think we really believe in IVF, of course. So many incredible miracles out of it. Also, we had like 3 pregnancies last week that were a result of non-IVF treatments.
That's amazing. And I want to talk about that. And I think like, obviously that's what makes your clinic so unique. But I feel like when women are going into the infertility process, it's normally like, okay, I want to get pregnant right now. And then it's like, oh, it doesn't work. So let me go to the clinic right now. Oh, they said IVF. Let's do that. So what are some early signs that women might notice that are like signs of infertility? Obviously, like endometriosis, PCOS are things that are going to make it more difficult, but are those 2 things, do you automatically have to go to infertility treatments?
Sure. So I think a part of this question is around like, what is infertility care? Like, what is the art of infertility medicine, right? And there's a distinction, I think, to be made between the art of practice and the reality of commercial fertility business, right? These are 2 disparate things in my opinion. And that's probably why I do my own thing. Like I have my own clinic, I run my own concierge practice where I'm not beholden to some of those structures, which I was previously in for about 5 years. And what the difference is between kind of what we do and like orthopedics or something where you fix a broken bone, right? And it's pretty clear if you fix the broken bone or not, right? Like,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty black and white.
It's pretty clear what you should do, right? Bone is broken, got to fix the bone, right? In fertility, it's not so clear. And there's a huge downhill incentive to doing as many IVF cycles as possible for a clinic. And so what has happened is a drift over time where the actual art of fertility practice is gradually being lost in favor of an IVF assembly line. This is how I feel. So this may be controversial, but this is how I feel about it. So this is why, like, certain practitioners, like, traditional Chinese medicine, naturopaths, things like that, have sort of stepped in as being people who a lot of the time people trust more in this regard. And a lot of the time people aren't wrong, because if you go to a clinic, they're going to sell you IVF that, and it may not actually address the underlying factors. So IVF can fix some very important things. Like if there's some error at the level of fertilization, we inject the sperm into the egg. Okay, we solve something. If there's an issue where the egg can't make it to the uterus properly, okay, IVF, we bypass that. We take the eggs out, we put them right into the uterus. So if you've had infections, issues, endometriosis,
the fallopian tubes
causes
aren't working,
issues with the
basically.
fallopian tubes that aren't working, we can bypass that. Okay, IVF has a role. But what IVF doesn't fix is the uterine environment. So where the actual implantation happens and where the embryo settles into the uterus. And that's where, in my opinion, naturopaths and traditional Chinese medicine have a very good insight in some cases. Now, it doesn't, everyone oversells what they do. So TCM, okay, they'll say acupuncture might bring you back from menopause. Okay, it's BS, right? It's not going to work. A naturopath might say, well, this supplement is going to do X, right? But there are kernels of truth in a lot of how they practice in certain cases.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a naturopath, they have a really good grasp on how to manage like PCOS and the metabolic dysfunction of PCOS. Certain supplements really do make a difference, especially with hyperandrogenism, like high male hormone, which can happen in PCOS, and insulin resistance. So these are areas where their therapies are very useful and powerful. Traditional Chinese medicine, they have a really good approach to those areas.
Inflammation, stress.
But also issues of, like the microbiome, inflammation, correlated microbiome issues. And so I think that, like, I've kind of taken little pieces out of the book of different practitioners over the years. And that's kind of that's when Roxy says and all this stuff. I mean, it's not like just random, It's
She's
like
pretty into let her go with that.
That's right.
I'm like the emotional support animal of the clinic. I don't have any medical knowledge.
Emotional support animal. I die in leopard.
Yeah, and I dress fabulously and I'm emotional support.
That's it.
And patients love me. I have no medical knowledge, so don't actually listen.
Know what?
When I say woo woo, I just
better.
love
That
all the
makes
things
you
he
feel
does.
better. Well, and that makes you feel better.
Honestly,
she's the warm blanket.
Honestly, it's been really a nice thing to practice. I'm not just saying it because we're on a podcast being filmed. It's been really nice to practice with her in the environment because
not only is she a woman,
we have that's part of it, of course, right? But part of it is that there's this there's a whole layer that even if you're a female doctor, I think you can't really step over into because there is a certain like professionalism you need to have in keeping a balanced energy, navigating someone through the objectively medically challenging parts of a journey. And so you can't really go over onto the other side. It just doesn't work well.
Yeah.
And so that's an area where, kind of Roxy comes in. And I think it's actually a very nice dynamic. We've had a good time.
I feel like when I went through IVF, I was looking for a doctor to hold my hand through it. And I went to Dr. Anderson and he was incredible, but he had no bedside manner. Okay. I'm like, he's going to Aspen. I was like, let's talk about Aspen. Like, I'll go there with you. He's like, no. I'm like, please hold my hand. Like my husband couldn't even be in the room when we were because it was COVID. I'm like, Dr. And I love him. And I think he would say the same about me. I broke him down slowly, but surely. I'm like, you're going to love me. I promise.
Right.
But I wish his wife was there being like, come here, I'll hold you.
Yeah.
Like, it is the most emotional, taxing thing that a woman could ever go through in her life, arguably, in my opinion. But I will say having like a woman there of like, I see you, I feel you. Like there's no greater urge than a woman to become a mother. So I feel like having that is huge.
Yeah. There's
it's interesting you mentioned it because let me just say quickly, my parents actually practiced in this way. So it's very interesting. Kind of mirror now that I didn't think was going to actually ever go that way.
She's like, what do you mean? Why?
But
are you questioning my medical degree?
Well, so my
came
parents
from the School of Fashion.
I mean, to be fair, my parents are both doctors, so there is that. But my mom is not an obstetrician, but my dad is. So he, delivers babies. He had his private practice where he would deliver all his own patients. So that's very unusual, actually, because it's very painful to do that, right? You're up all night and then you're in the clinic all day. So not many doctors, no one does it anymore. That's really a previous generation thing. But even in that generation, not everyone did that, right?
You break your back to do it.
Yeah, but he loved to do it. So she would go with him, in these cases, and so they were always together doing it together.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh my gosh, I love that.
It's really special because it's like we always say, we're a family making families. Like it's a different energy than when you go in than a business. We're not like, and it's interesting.
You're not a turn and burn. You're emotionally invested in these families.
Yeah. And it's like Arnold's popularity is rising and he's beginning to do all sorts of things that bring visibility to how special the practice is with people approaching us. And it's interesting. Someone came in the other day and they were a patient, and that patient happens to be a big private equity person. And they were like, Arnold, this is magic here. Have you ever thought about expanding? And he said to them, and I just heard him say it, and it was so true. He goes, not everything's meant to be scaled.
Ooh.
And it was just like a very...
You can't scale yourself.
This is a beautiful practice with a beautiful meaning, and families are made here.
Well, you can't duplicate a synergy that you guys have in the office.
It's just something... It's just something magical that happens there, and we feel that energy, and our patients feel that.
Yeah. Well, it's a craft, right? At the end of the day, some of this stuff is like it's like that line between what's an art or a craft versus what becomes a business, and there's a line. There is a line, and where that's drawn, I think, is hard to define. Mm-hmm. But I think that the best way that anything that is a craft, which this is, anything was meant to be done that way, was meant to be done in a little bit of a sacred kind of environment, a little bit removed from some of these things.
There's definitely an art to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Question for you. What control does a woman have on her infertility versus like diet, exercise, stress versus biology, PCOS, endometriosis?
Right. So, not as much as we would like is the point. And a big part of that
makes me feel so much better.
Yeah. And a big part of that is because some of these conditions are very difficult to, reverse or to stall the progress of. Like, for example, PCOS, endometriosis. These are things that can intrinsically affect the pelvic anatomy. They can affect the egg quality, and you can mitigate it over time, right? But you can't actually
cure it
really in that sense. And the issue is that even if you do correct a problem, eggs have been there since birth. Mm. And so they are gradually sort of getting older over time, becoming increasingly abnormal genetically over time. And so solving a problem, for example, if you solve another type of problem, even a sperm issue, sperm are regenerated from stem cells perpetually. Mm. And so if there's an insult, there's an issue, you solve it, like you repair a varicocele, for example, which is a vein abnormality in the testicle or in the scrotum.
Don't worry, we're following.
Where's the scrotum?
Like you correct a problem like that.
Yeah, it's fixable.
Then it's fixable, and then the sperm will come back.
You have what you have.
The eggs aren't fixable in the same way. So that's a big part of why, yes, you can have lifestyle to mitigate some of these issues, but
your quality of eggs is your quality of eggs.
Quality of eggs is quality of eggs. Now, the things you can improve with lifestyle are things that connect to metabolic health, which can impact ovarian function. So
ovulation.
Yeah, especially in PCOS. So like, for example, the biggest pathway that is affected by exercise and by lifestyle would be, in my opinion, the one that's mediated by insulin resistance. Mm. So PCOS, one of the big issues is insulin resistance. I mean, you're hearing a lot about insulin resistance now.
Okay, wait, I'm dying to talk about this because I just keep hearing so much. And I had my ROB actually talk to me about microdosing GLP-1s for insulin resistance PCOS. I'm like, I'm sorry, did you just say I need to be on?
Did you just say I'm going to get skinny while finishing fixing my PCOS?
Yeah, but and the whole thing is insulin resistance and how that's curing. He's like, this is a peptide. I mean, I feel like some of these drugs get such a bad rep of like, oh, you just want the fast way of getting skinny, but it's like actually metabolically, my doctor hat, this could be helping you.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And that pathway is a very important one. So the I don't know how detailed you want to get into this, but the pathway
He's like, make an appointment, Kendra.
The pathway where, insulin resistance is connected to a lot of different things. In particular, hormone production in the ovary is where it becomes most relevant to us. But systemically, insulin and hormones are closely tied. Insulin is a hormone, but insulin and reproductive hormones are very closely linked together. So when you have abnormal insulin resistance, one of the things that gets affected is reproductive hormones, which then, of course, downstream affects fertility. And this is something that for sure can be modified by lifestyle and exercise and diet. And it's through that mechanism. Things that don't have that mechanism, like if you're like endometriosis is not so linked in that way to some clear mechanism connected to diet or exercise. So you're not going to really reverse that in that way. There are some endometriosis friendly diets that are like lower inflammation diets, and that's good, right? But it's not such a direct link.
A direct correlation. Well, and there's different PCOSs, right? Like people would always say to me, but you're not overweight and you don't have cystic acne or like body hair. Like I have no body hair. I'll pride myself on that. But I'm like, I have irregular periods and clusters on like the grapes on,
the ovarian
pearl
appearance in the ovary.
I have pearls on my ovaries.
Right, that's right.
You're looking at me like I know.
You're just not.
She's like,
like, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a bit technical, which is why you're not.
No, but what I was going to say is, I don't know if you ladies know this story, but before Arnold and I got pregnant, before I was in a relationship with Arnold, I had broken up with somebody in my mid 30s, and I went to a fertility clinic because I wanted to freeze my eggs, and they were like, "You're for sure going to have to do IVF." They just looked at me and they're like, age, you're 34. I was like 33 or 34 at the time. I was overweight, and they're just like, you probably have PCOS. You're definitely going to need IVF. And I was like, oh, okay. That's like a lot of information.
So many women get though when you walk in.
But I just left this relationship. What was I supposed to do? Like, we don't always get it right in life. And then it was interesting when I fell in love with Arnold, and I just happened to fall in love with a fertility doctor, which was great. The world was manifesting that for me. And what was interesting is that he put me on sort of like a regime where he's like, we need to change some things. So I started working out a lot, but not just working out, doing like really specific like weight training and things that were building insulin. I don't know. You can speak to what it was building. And then he put me on supplements, and he put me on some like changes, and I changed. It was so interesting. Everything. My body began to change. My health began to change, and my blood work began to change. And lo and behold, 6 months after Arnold had put me on this program, we got naturally pregnant.
That is the biggest testament.
And that is what inspired our app. Like it was
you also had a test that said your tubes were blocked, remember?
I also had a test that said my tubes were blocked.
Is that crazy how many women?
And they're just like, your tubes are blocked. If I wasn't married to Arnold, I would have gone down the path of just doing all of this, because I wouldn't have I would have just trusted that the information is, doctor tells you something, you listen. Right. But it was so crazy how by just improving my own health and taking control of my health and like the inflammation in my body, for example, I was able, and I'm not saying this is a solution for everyone, obviously we have lots of patients who could not do this. But it was interesting that with that, both times I got pregnant at 38 and 39.
Well, that's what I was
37 and 38. I don't remember.
Wow. That's what I was going to ask. Cause like, I know you have practice in traditional IVF, but your guys' clinic, that's why we have you here, is so different, because you take a different approach. And I think women who go to their regular OB and then they've tried for 6 months or a year, they're like, okay, go see the infertility doctor, and then here's what you do.
Sure.
For someone who is coming to you guys with infertility issues, like what is the first step, or how are you breaking down? Like what is the first meeting like? What goes into your practice like that?
Yeah, I can share that. So I think that first of all, the key distinction I think is that, like an IVF doctor is not a real thing. Like IVF doctor is something that is like in the last few years is like a thing, right? The actual field is reproductive endocrinology. So
I've never heard that.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So, it's a reproductive endocrinology.
Right.
Yes.
That's what a fertility doctor is.
Right. So
not an IVF doctor.
So
yes.
But
see the difference?
But the point I'm making is that's like the way you characterize it is actually how it ends up being, right? And so, really the comprehensive evaluation of a patient who's struggling with infertility does involve understanding things that are going on with their hormones. Like I had a patient recently who was told she needed IVF, but she had an abnormality in her male hormones. So she had elevations in that. And so she needed to have that suppressed with a certain steroid in order to even have an environment that was going to be receptive to a pregnancy. And she's one of the people that Roxy mentioned got pregnant without needing IVF.
Wow.
But
And
she'd
so-
been just told, of course, you need IVF.
You need IVF.
Here's a bill. We'll sign you up for 3 rounds.
Here's
But the
your
issue
20
is-
grand bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue is that if it worked, like, okay, you're spending a bit more money, whatever, it worked, right? The problem is that if you don't correct the actual issue affecting the environment, right,
Other issues can arise.
it's just not going to work. It's just
Well,
going to be a failed cycle. And then you're going to
Or you can
keep running
get,
it
I mean,
again
like
and
my
again.
biggest thing now is like, if you don't fix what's going on, like, okay, yeah, you got your
Mhm.
ticket to get a baby. And
Right.
don't get me wrong, I'm so happy that I did. I have 2 beautiful babies and 8
Sure,
more embryos. You never know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what else was happening that didn't get corrected?
I think
know,
that's
like,
the
what
crucial
supplements
thing.
do I
It's
need?
not-
What-
Crucial.
Yeah, it's not like
Because
an,
it's
my
your
overall
body,
health.
for your overall
Yeah.
health. Yeah.
it's not an anti-IVF position. I
Yeah.
want to be clear on that.
Yeah, we do
It's
IVF
a-
in the
All the
clinic
time,
all
sure.
the time.
It's a pro actually figuring out what's going on position.
Totally.
Yeah.
Getting down to the root.
Right.
Root cause
Right.
medicine.
Sure.
And so that you got to be careful with that term now because it's been advocated for by RFK. And so it's become like a political term.
Yeah, that's right.
which is
People think
silly.
it's on the side of woo-woo. And I'm like, woo-woo is not always political.
Well,
No.
and because this idea of, I think, what does he call it? Restorative reproductive medicine, right? And it's become, we can't be for that. But like the idea behind it, which is like, let's figure out what's actually going on, right? And it's not always just a formulaic workup that leads to IVF, right? I think that part is okay. I'm sure RFK takes it way too far. I don't doubt
Yeah.
that. I don't doubt that.
Are you about like the same with other doctors of like 1 year of trying naturally before you're considered infertile? I hate that word infertile, but like
It
you should
depends on
get
your-
infertility assistance.
It depends on your age, I think,
Yeah.
as to how you define it. What I would
Yeah, that's
say
true. Like
is,
if you're
and your
40
goals.
trying,
If
yeah.
you're 40, don't be
Like,
waiting.
we're going.
yeah,
If you're 36, don't be waiting.
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, so like, I think that the key is that currently the mentality is pretty much any age. If you try for 3 months and you didn't get pregnant, you should do IVF. That's actually the position of my colleagues.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Holy
I've heard it on multiple Instagrams now, so I can say that that's a
Holy
position.
Shit.
So it's like that to me doesn't make much sense unless you're
Well,
like
it's a
40
business
years
in
old.
making babies then.
So like I think that doesn't make much sense. That said, do you want to try for a year without having any optimization at all? Well, that probably doesn't make sense either. Because what if you do have an issue that needs to be adjusted?
You want to get in
Not
front of
necessarily
it.
needing IVF, but you can sort of improve your chances that way. But yeah, I think that it's relative to the person. I think if you have access, I would say, speak to a good endocrinologist, even a good naturopath or a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner,
Get
because
your
they
blood
have a
work.
good sense of how to optimize your general health. Blood work can be helpful, depending on the situation. Sometimes you don't need it. Like sometimes TCMs, they do a good job without having it because they have other ways of assessing, the overall composition, right? So they have a different philosophy on how they approach that. I think it can be good with a good practitioner. But the point is probably get assessed a little bit at least prior to spending a year trying.
And don't
I
get
think it's not a
assessed
bad
from
idea.
TikTok.
Yeah, oh gosh.
Like,
Well,
I-
like
I
how I
can't
have my
tell
medical
you-
degree.
There is so many people on
I saw this on
legitimate
Instagram. I saw
podcasts
this,
on
yeah.
TikTok, and it always says fertility expert, and they're just touting information. It's like, just because you've gone through IVF and you've gone through your own fertility journey, this does not make you a fertility expert.
Or to be able
Like,
to
it
give
mean-
other people advice.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone's giving out advice, and I show Arnold some of this stuff, and it's just at the
Well,
root
and
of it
women
all is
cling to
pushing
it.
something.
And women cling to it because they're so desperate.
Of course you're desperate. And at the root of it all is like I told Arnold, this is this girl's selling a fertility smoothie. This girl's selling a fertility
I'll buy it.
supplement. And I can tell you because we have supplements in our clinic. Arnold has personalized supplements that he does for all of his patients. And they're personalized and unique to each patient because each patient has different needs.
One
Right.
size
And so
fits
it's
all,
like, but there's at the root of these fertility experts, there's always something they're pushing.
yeah, totally.
And it drives me nuts because, you don't know. And when you're at home and you're desperate and you're looking for answers, you open TikTok or Instagram and it can be a great wealth of information. And it can also be so much misinformation.
Well, and they're targeting an easy target, a woman that wants to
It's
become
horrible.
a mother. It's like for a business.
So I think that the thing that I want to add to that is that I am, not sort of on the side of, the Western clinics are always right. In fact, I think in our field, that's probably not true a lot of the time, right? So this is probably a little bit controversial to my colleagues, but, I think that the domination of the industry with the consolidation and the PE firms and all that has made it that I understand why you go to TikTok. I understand why you're going to different things because you're like, this doesn't ring true.
Mm.
Like when I go to this clinic and they're like, oh, well, this is what you got to do. And you're like, I just don't feel that is true. And it doesn't align with my understanding of my own body. And people are not always wrong. And they hear stories from other people who are like, yeah, I felt that way too. Then I went a different way and I got pregnant. So clearly I wasn't wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is why, like, like a lot of the time, especially in jurisdictions and areas where the practice has become very formulaic in the Western side, which is an American medicine problem across the board. When that does happen, I do tend to say to people, if they're like, look, I want to kind of do some stuff, but I don't want to come to LA and see you, but like, what do I do, right? If I know someone, I'll say, look, I know this good naturopath in your area. I would probably start there, which is a controversial thing for a Western doctor to say. But I think in my field, a lot of the time from what I see, I would trust that to do a more comprehensive assessment of your overall holistic health and try and optimize that, right? Than I would a lot of fertility clinics.
And then you tell them to use
and then
the
if you need
app.
IVF, right, there's a good partnership there between like a naturopath optimizing that and then like a fertility clinic when you need, the docs who can do the things, right, to go and do the actual procedure, right? But I think that, the clinics a lot of the time have become a bit too much of technicians, like IVF technicians almost, rather than holistic management. So that's the add-on I want to say to the TikTok thing, because like I get why
It's a
that's
blessing
happening.
and a curse. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good information, and then there's also a lot of like predatory information
right.
that's like, no, you just need this smoothie. Oh, do this, and then it floods your brain. I mean, there's
Right.
like anything. There's two sides.
Especially where I see this is a huge part of Beverly Hills Babies is we do third-party journeys, which is mostly, people using egg donors, sperm donors, surrogates. And we're doing this for people all over the world. All over the world, people come. Like right now, we have patients from India, Australia, China, Switzerland, Canada.
Wow.
Right now,
That are
we're
coming
all
and
coming to
staying.
LA to see Arnold,
Mhm.
so that Arnold can handle their surrogacy journey. And it's interesting because that's another space where there's like a lot of. I tell people find a really wonderful doctor for that because there's so much gray space. There's so much gray area. There's all sorts of things happening and there's a ton of misinformation. So like, I think that's like an interesting place for you to talk about because we hear all of these stories of somebody went to Tijuana and made a baby and we hear these stories and people come to us and I think you should talk about that because if you don't know about it, it's like, who do you even ask about it? People don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so, we're kind of bookending the first part of our chat here, which was, if you're trying to get pregnant and you're struggling to do that, how do you navigate that, right? This whole area of third party is a whole other.
Oh, okay. So maybe I shouldn't have gone there.
It's a whole other
I
thing.
do want to
find it so fascinating.
we want to talk about surrogacy, egg donor, sperm donor, even all of it. But for people that don't understand exactly, and I think that like any the embryo, what is it if you were like are the embryologist that's like putting the embryo? What is that? What you are? An embryologist?
No, I'm
not you, but like the people in the lab that are doing
an
it.
embryologist. Yes, embryologist.
Okay, so for people that don't know exactly like what even IVF is, and I'm asking for because I think a lot of people are like, oh, think IVF, yeah, they match it, put it in a petri dish or a test tube baby.
Sure.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So what IVF is in vitro, which is in a tube or in a somewhere not in the body. You put sperm and eggs together, create embryos, and then you transfer an embryo to the uterus to create a pregnancy. That's what IVF is in a nutshell. Some more context as to what it's actually solving. Well, you can put it together. As I said, you're helping with fertilization. So if you have a problem at the level of fertilization, the sperm's not getting into the egg properly, it's not navigating that process, well, we can solve that because we take the egg out, we solve fertilization pretty well that way. If there's a problem, the actual fertilization happens in the fallopian tube. So you have like 2 ovaries, fallopian tubes, then the uterus in the middle. Right? So the eggs get ovulated, go into the tube. They actually get fertilized in the fallopian tube and then have to make their way as the embryo develops through the tube into the uterus where the implantation happens and the pregnancy is actually created. So if there's a problem in that path where the embryo can't make it through the tube properly, it can happen because you had an infection. It can happen because you have endometriosis. It can happen because congenitally there's some problem you were born with where the tubes don't work properly. We can bypass that with IVF too. So, because we're basically bypassing that process of taking the eggs out, fertilizing them, and then putting them straight into the uterus. So the transit process is eliminated. So IVF is very, very, very good at solving those kind of problems. And I would say the third really good problem that it can solve is a sperm issue, which we're seeing increasingly. If you don't have a high enough count for the sperm to get up into the uterus, all the way into the fallopian tube.
There's a little path to travel to get up there.
There's a path to travel to get up there. And
you got to have some strong swimmers.
You got to have some strong swimmers. So if your sperm is having an issue, then that's also, reasonably easy to solve as well with IVF, because the reason you're not getting pregnant is because the egg is not seeing much, sperm around it, right?
It dies before it gets there.
It kind of just, there's not enough to kind of get there. It's like a war of attrition, right? They're all kind of trying to flood this thing. And if there's not enough, they don't make it there. And so then we can bypass that too. So that's what IVF is really good at solving.
What does in vitro mean?
In vitro means in a dish. So
in a dish, in an environment, controlled environment almost?
Basically, there's in vivo, which is in the body, and then in vitro, which is kind of outside the body in some other entities. So that's what in vitro is.
Is that Latin?
Is that turning you on, Mama?
You just know so much stuff.
I know, right?
Sometimes I just your mind. You're like, what?
Wow. I know. I could same.
And your children have half that brain.
I know.
Wow.
Amazing. Before we get into the surrogacy conversation, I think a big part of the practice, or like a big part of infertility, is the emotional roller coaster. And you can probably speak a lot to this of just seeing the patients that are coming into your practice. This has to be the biggest emotional ride for a woman of like, is it working? Did it work? For a couple.
Or a man. We have lots of we have lots of male only patients. So I always remind people, because having worked in a fertility clinic, we always talk about women.
Thank you.
And we have tons of male patients. We have tons of same-sex patients. We have female patients who are on their own. So there's all different types of patients. And it's interesting because we really always just talk about women. And if we keep only talking about women, we don't highlight and kind of bring awareness to the fact that there's solutions for anyone trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
I say that because it's like, I didn't know.
You see it all.
Yeah.
Like no one talked about, who's talking about sperm count? Men were not talking about.
Not enough, but how
men were not talking about having babies on their own. That was just not a thing years ago. So sorry.
To your point, it's a very stressful process when you're trying to get pregnant in any way. And even if things are going well each step of the way, right? And a lot of the time things don't in some cases, right? And then you have to navigate that. And I think that the main areas you see it is in your own journey as a woman, going through your own identity, kind of where a lot of women have seen themselves as entities that can give birth as part of their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're having this real challenge to like who you are as a woman and what you thought you were as a woman and what your definition of a woman is, right?
And
is it someone, who has to be, this fertile entity? Like that's, of
You're
course, those
to
things
give
are
life
not
as a woman.
exactly, and those things are not actually the same thing, right? But you have to sort of come to terms with that sometimes. And then the other part of it is in your relationship. So this puts a lot of strain on relationships, because obviously when you're not feeling your best, when things aren't going as you expected, this like magical cosmic dance that's supposed to be happening, right? Where you come together and you create this baby, sex, maybe that.
Your love created a baby.
Got it.
Yeah.
Takes the romance out of it.
Like that's starting to fray, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of fraying at the seams, and you're kind of trying to live your life with staying excited and staying hopeful, but you're coming up against this sort of major assault. And I think that those things can be very hard to navigate. So I think a big part of how I handle that is handling the medical stuff well. It actually makes a big difference. So a lot of the stress that couples feel, sometimes it's from the clinic itself.
So much is from the clinic itself. It's a stressful enough process at baseline.
Yeah.
But then so much added stress comes from just the chaos or the inefficiencies
or the unknowns,
the unknown, or the medicine that wasn't practiced well from the clinics.
Yeah. There's a lot of clinical error.
Well, I mean,
without pointing fingers. Okay.
I see a lot of it.
We
obviously then they come to me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a biased sample, but I think like a lot of navigating that stuff is that you have someone, like it's like anything else in life, right? If you're going through something on your own, it's different than going through something when you have someone with you, right? And so this process is no different. And so a big difference I found when I switched into the way I practice now versus, in kind of the big clinic setting is that I'm really there with my patients as we go through it. Like, and they're aware of that. They have my cell phone. We're together. We're figuring it out. Like it's something that actually helps alleviate a lot of it. And then also the judgments we make along the way, we make them based on what's happening in your situation. Obviously, the end goal is to get pregnant, no matter what, right? That's always the goal. But how we go about it, it varies based on kind of what's going on
and what they can handle as a couple.
So
what they can handle.
When you say that, are you meaning like what path? Like, are you going to IUI? Are we going straight to IVF? Are we
correct.
looking at lifestyle and putting supplements first?
Like,
what are your goals? How fast?
Do we need a surrogate so there's no more stress
There's
on the
so
partner?
many lines. Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so there are just different ways to get to this endpoint, right? And, like I hear cases where, sort of 8 or 10 IVF cycles were done. And to me, I personally have never done that ever, like literally ever. I think sometimes judgments that are made along the way in terms of what, it's not such a formula.
Yeah.
And I think, you hear that happened and then they got divorced like the next year because obviously they've just done like years of fertility treatment hell, right? So it's, I think the right judgments are different for different people in terms of getting to that endpoint. And I think that how you handle that makes a big difference. Beyond that, I think, I have found honestly that providing that support and making the right judgments with people and being there with people, we mitigate a lot of this. So it hasn't been something where, okay, now I need to plug in like 10 counselors because,
Right.
Like
Here's the therapist around the corner.
It just hasn't been.
Roxy,
She's in-house. She's
Roxy
in-house.
plus Arnold has been enough for our patients.
Yeah.
Like
like, and of course they speak to you in a different way. Like, I mean, one of our patients, was very emotional with you the other day, right? And
patients and I cry a lot together. And Arnold's is like, I just know so much about our patients that has absolutely nothing to do with medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're able to connect and I'm able to support them in a way that they feel supported with a feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like my husband is an incredible doctor, but he's also a very masculine present energy, which I think they love in the clinic as their doctor.
You want to know that he's going to get things done for you.
Yeah. And then there's this balance of what I provide, which is very different. And there's this, I know this is all controversial, but there's this feminine, masculine energy that we're balancing, that people are responding to both of us for different things. And there's something very visceral that's going on here. We're making a family. There's a couple on the line usually.
Right.
Like there's a lot on the line here. And it is just so much more than medicine when it's a fertility clinic. And so it's been very interesting because I just sort of jumped into all of this. And then here I am. It's the most rewarding thing in the world. But it's different. It's a very, very charged situation. So we try and take away everything that is unnecessary stress that is caused by the medicine, by the doctor, by a nurse not calling you on time, by you not getting your medicine, by a clinic that didn't call you, by a waiting room that's filled with people.
Yeah.
Like we only see one patient at a time.
That's nice.
That's by design. It's completely private.
So one thing I want to talk about, you said the medication, the cost of medication is so astronomically high. Like when I was going through this process, and granted, this was 5 years ago. I don't know if they've gone up. I don't know if things have changed. Well, actually, I guess I did it again with Zoe, but I was like, I just need my girl. Charge it.
Right.
Some of these medications are $3,000, $4,000. I think one of them was like $7,000. I was like, well, what the hell did I just pay for? I'm like, this is going to be, but I was lucky that I didn't have to go through 6, 7, 8 and go through more egg. Like I got 55 eggs with my retrieval. So I was always going to be good with one retrieval. But for the people that have to keep going back to the bank and getting more or going, like you run out of money.
Financially, it can be very stressful.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess it's worth calling out that the administration just announced that they've, I think, committed to dropping fertility prices or pressuring companies to do that.
Yeah, that's what Trump said.
For the drugs, the drug costs.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's coming. I mean, the meds that I use the same meds in Canada, which were half the price.
So we already have a route for our patients.
And so we have it because I'm board certified in Canada as well. So we have a path.
So we have a lower cost of medication.
No way.
Yeah.
But can you get it from there?
There are FDA allowed pathways where they can order it for their personal use for up to 90 days. There's like this fine print. And so
I love a fine print.
Yeah, we're able to
we won't talk about it all on a podcast
but
because it's so detailed. But.
So go see Dr. Arnold.
Well, I mean, the point is, I think medication costs are coming down, hopefully.
Hopefully.
But they're definitely artificially high in the US.
Right.
Well, and then some of them, like when I was going through, I think it was my egg retrieval, some were out of stock. And it was like, if you weren't, and granted, this was COVID, so maybe this had something to do with it. But if you were going through your cycle, like anyone that hadn't been going through, they were shut down. And if you were already in it, you were going to get drug allowances. And already, like I just got chills saying that out loud, but like already you're trying to become pregnant. And then you hear this hurdle of like, okay, not only is it going to cost you thousands of dollars, but like now there's this line of like, are you going to be able to get on this boat or not? Like,
No,
it's leaving without
crazy.
you.
And there are just so many different meds actually that can do pretty much the same thing. There's only a few that are approved in the US. And so, you know, there's never really a scenario where like on the planet, the meds that you need aren't there and we can't easily ship them in. Like it's just that
the beauty of
doctors
our
may not have a comfort level with those different meds.
Yeah,
we
the
have a
beauty
lot
of
of
our
flexibility and avenues.
It's totally concierge. Like the
sounds like there's nothing you won't do.
Well, it's that the last
long as
stop
it's
is
right.
Arnold. Like, so it's not based on what's efficient. It's not based on what's processed.
The bottom line.
It's not based on what our giant legal team has approved. It's based on the medical, clinical decisions he makes about what's best for patients.
Right. And one of those decisions obviously can be surrogacy, especially like you mentioned for same-sex couples. That has to be scary though, as like a mom finding a surrogate, picking a surrogate. How do you handle that process?
Sure. Yeah. So we do a lot of third parties. That's a big part of our practice. And so that's where we get a lot of international, you know, I have internationals coming for their own fertility issue as well, but a lot of them come for third party. And, you know, the experience of being, I mean, like imagine what you're talking about, except now you're international. So you're now a parent who's in a different country, the baby growing in someone's uterus in a different country. So it is.
When you say third party, do you mean surrogacy or do you also mean sperm donor, egg donor as well?
So third party applies to
anyone coming in.
Surrogacy, egg donor, sperm donor.
Okay.
Any third party getting involved in your thing. But
there's now a third. Yes, got it.
There's now a third.
There's now a third person
in the mix.
Yeah, just like exactly. So you have the things that we see most though are surrogacy and egg donation. You know, sperm donation is also there and is relevant for same-sex female couples, obviously. But I would say the most common things that we see in our practice are surrogacy and egg donation. And so each of those are interesting buckets. So the egg donation bucket, we have, especially from our because we have single men who want to have a family.
We have many single men who want to have families.
That's
I don't think people, and not just
gay,
we have lots of heterosexual single men who want to have families, and it's
an interesting
so
phenomenon.
fascinating.
Can I ask?
It's been a change over time.
Well, I always say, like, if I could actually just run a dating service,
and
I have all these women who want to have babies, and then I have all these men who want to have babies.
There's the podcast that you guys need to.
And I'm sometimes like, oh, but
we just
obviously,
together?
Obviously, I cannot put people together, but it's fascinating to me because that's part of our practice that I do take care of, is helping with our donor searches and finding these perfect egg donors. And it is just, you talk about emotional and psychological kind of journeys. The things people want vary so much, the reasons why they want them, the types of patients. I mean, I obviously can't speak about who our patients are, but we have some incredibly high profile single men. And so I was like, you could marry anybody.
And in fact,
if I just let anybody know you were in our clinic, I could have 100 voluntary egg donors outside the clinic. And instead,
they'll cook and clean.
And they'll here we are. And yet they're like, no, I want this very specific thing.
I was going to say, is it very specific?
I bet.
Well, there's a couple motivations, right? Because it's interesting to get into that a little bit.
And it's spicy and controversy.
When you say because motivations, it's like, are we doing this because my uterus cannot handle carrying a baby?
Right.
That's one reason.
I ran out of eggs. I need some fresh 20-something-year-old eggs.
Right.
There's
there's medical reasons.
There's medical reasons.
Beautiful
sometimes.
Russian model.
Right.
I want her eggs, and I want a baby with no strings attached.
Right.
There's a lot of that too.
Or in the case of one person, he wants an MIT. So it's very
So
specific.
if you're out there, call us.
Wait.
Someone who plays on an athletic team at MIT.
Or Harvard.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
Oh, it wasn't
MIT.
even Harvard, just
I'm
MIT.
sorry.
MIT.
I didn't
What?
even
And she
realize
has to
MIT
be-
had an
She
athletics
also has to
program.
look a certain way and be a certain height. But
I had to look
this
it up.
girl,
Yeah, they do. They have
I don't know
athletics.
if I-
Do you go poach them for eggs?
So there is. So
Are we going
We're
to
currently-
MIT?
I'm
we're
not
currently-
doing it directly.
We currently has
I'm just providing the medical services for this one. But there is a lady who he has hired to go and live in Boston
yeah.
and to try and
Poach.
get someone to do it. Yeah.
Recruit.
And but
Recruit.
in
Yeah.
exchange,
Text me after the podcast.
I don't know if I can. I
Wow.
don't know if I can say the dollar figure, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for
Of
her
compensation.
Of
What, like
compensation.
$500,000 for eggs.
Well, let's just say we have patients that we have billionaires and very high profile people.
it's a drop
who
in the
have
bucket for that egg.
absolutely
Yeah.
no limit on budget, and they want something really specific. And then imagine you're a 24-year-old girl and someone's going to hand you. That's a big.
I mean,
Wow.
That's a big amount of money.
This is an outlier amount.
This is an outlier situation.
Of
It's
course.
obviously by the nature of our practice being so concierge,
Right.
Beverly Hills Babies,
This is
and
what comes
Dr.
across our
Arnold,
desk.
we come across some very interesting cases. And the other day, we had, so I'll tell you in other cases that we've had a few of these lately where they're on the phone and they're having conversation with Arnold and they say, we want you to understand that you're making the heir to our legacy. We've built a legacy that we want to continue on and you are making the heir to that.
No pressure.
So it's like,
well, they say it specifically in the context of we want traits
like
in
resilience.
the egg that are
Okay,
resilient.
wait a
We
second.
want-
wait a
Yeah.
second.
we
I know
want-
that you can test gender.
We
in
want
the
perseverance.
embryos.
Well, we look
Wait.
for things.
Wait, Roxy, you cannot test for these
We
in
can't
embryos.
test for them. We cannot test for them in
But you
embryos.
can look
but
for.
we can look at their things that signal to there's certain things that give us, evidence that they've been through things and handled them well, that they've had grit.
So I think the context of that beyond that is what is heritable and what is not.
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Yes.
So
yeah, and like what's
See
happening?
why it's
within
spicy?
the Surrogacy.
See why it's exciting
so-
to talk about?
so like
I bet you didn't know this. at Rose.
personality is actually very highly heritable. Personality disorders are some of the most highly heritable things. Okay, so if you have OCPD,
Bipolar.
I like that.
Yep.
So bipolar is one of the most highly heritable
Yep.
psychiatric disorders. And so there are things to do with how you think that are actually highly heritable. Things like, there are obviously physical characteristics too. There's certain things that aren't. They're more nurture, right? They're more how you grow up. And
So single ladies, very, very pay attention to who you're dating. Like that, it's
Yeah.
like when you're picking
Absolutely.
your spouse, you're picking the father, like of your children.
Like as if it's
Like,
not hard enough to fall in love and find
Yeah.
the person. But
it just
also,
got smaller.
just so you know,
Ask about personality
there's
disorders.
very inheritable
Oh my-
personality disorders.
So if you have that crazy mother-in-law,
right.
Yeah, like
maybe skip.
somewhere down the line, some child is going to be like, but have you met Myron and Elia's mother?
Yeah, right.
She's always in leopard and yelling.
I love it.
Wait,
But,
but so this
wow.
is something that your
We're
practice
doing this.
can offer.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
It is wild, like
Sounds like we're
thinking-
talking like future.
yeah,
Like,
it's wild thinking about it, but it also oddly makes sense. Like if there
It's
is
just
a
very
billionaire
bespoke
who
for
wants
anything
someone
else
to
in
their
this world.
heir,
Yeah.
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 No, it makes perfect sense. It's not that it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
It's just weird.
it's just weird
Yeah,
and
it's-
wild.
It's not that it's weird. It's unique to like a lot of people, they get drunk on the 4th of July and a baby comes 10 months later. Okay. Then there's a whole other world out there. of how
That's
people are
right.
having babies. There's
Mhm.
medical reasons, there's personal reasons. And I always say, like, it's not our place to judge. Like, we're here to make families.
Of course.
And their reasoning and their motivations, as long as they're pure and not bad
Sure.
people, we have to respect. But also, you just don't know until you've walked in the shoes. So I'll give an example of a patient. He has built quite a legacy, and I understand why he's thinking really strongly about how and who and how he can make the best possible version or the best attempt at making someone who can carry that weight of that. And, we look at partners. Like when I'm choosing
Sure.
a husband or someone I want to have babies with, look, I've got myself a nice doctor.
That's right.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying I fell in love and got married for those reasons, but we do look at partners. And so I try not to judge why this person's coming to us looking for a baby that's a certain
It does
way.
have to be wild though, going from one patient that is sitting there of like, okay, we've tried, the host of my uterus is not able to accept an embryo.
Mhm.
We have to go look for surrogacy because I've had 2 pretty traumatic births and my husband's like, we are done. You cannot handle. I'm like, well, I'll go to surrogacy. And then I think of epigenetics and I think
Right.
that woman's doing it for money. She's like, I go down the rabbit hole of like, I
Right.
can't
Well,
have a
it depends,
surrogate.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next patient
By
and
the
it's
way, we
like,
see amazing surrogates.
I know, I bet you do.
Wonderful. They're screened for things like
Well, I can tell you
Like
how
they're not
we
eating flaming hot Cheetos.
I can tell you how we manage.
We
it.
have
watching
Arnold has
Teletubbies.
Arnold has a very unique way of managing his surrogates and tracking their.
Well, I can explain
He can
what we
explain
do.
it.
I would
Speak
love
to
to
it.
understand
Yeah.
that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we can get into. You had a question though. I thought you.
Yeah,
we
sorry.
can
No,
just go to this.
now my question.
Now
is
you have this
that.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't
So-
worry, your surrogate
so-
will not be like that.
So the way that so what you're thinking is what everyone's thinking
Everyone
as well,
thinks.
right? So everyone's very concerned, like, what is this person going to do during their pregnancy? How are they going to eat? How are they going to, live? Sort of, are they going to take substances, right? These are all things that people are worried about, very appropriately so. So for certain surrogates and certain clients who are interested in doing this, and it's all totally like, you have to want to do this for each other, right? It has to be something that it's not something forced upon anyone, right?
That's a really great point. That they're both
Of
joining
course.
in to want to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
General
of course.
agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
mutual
course.
agreement.
But
Yeah, and it's not
for the
agreement,
right
like they have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that as part of this journey of carrying this baby, like you want to make sure you're at your best and you can put your best foot forward, we can, I have this approach where we can monitor using the Aura Ring to monitor exercise, to monitor sleep, to monitor those sort of things to help you live your best life, just like how you would do it, just
peace of
for
mind,
your
like,
for
wives.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And then
you might do that. Like I did these things when I was carrying a baby to make sure I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, there's continuous glucose monitors now that a lot of people are using to try and be accountable to how they eat and how they eat through the day to minimize glucose spikes, things like that, right? And these are also things that, some surrogates are interested in doing to help have the healthiest pregnancy.
And for a peace of mind for the
Well, they
Yeah,
want
and
they
it,
want to do their job the best they
Yeah, and
they
it
know
provides
that your
peace of
job is
mind.
to
how do
carry
you
the
go about
baby.
finding the best surrogates?
Yeah, so I mean,
Like, do you have them all over the country? Are they
so-
all here in Southern California?
surrogates come from a lot of different states. So one big thing is the laws in that state. So states vary on laws
Ah.
around surrogacy, in particular around pre-birth orders. So which means when you actually,
Oh gosh,
when you actually give birth, is the baby born, under the surrogate's name first, then has to be switched into the parent's name, or is it from the second it's born already the intended parent's child, right? And that's a legal difference in some states. So
But
states
here in
like
California,
But yeah, like states like California, for example, have pre-birth orders. There are many other states that do as well. I think it's important to have that as part of,
take away that mess.
take away that issue. And so that narrows it down into a few states. And then we find people in those states who are interested in doing this, want to do this, have the right support system, are doing it
family
for,
support.
the right
They're all
reasons.
doing it for financial gain.
There's always a
right?
component. There's always a component. But you know what?
But
So is everyone.
so is like
Everyone's
we
doing
don't-
everything.
We
For
don't.
some
They're like, I
complexity
know how to
reasons,
do
right?
this well, and I'm
It's a
able
job.
to get paid for it, and I want to do this really well, and they
And I'll
think they're
help.
great at it,
Yeah, but there's
and
always
they can help someone doing it. I don't see. I find it more in Canada. You can't pay surrogates,
You cannot.
and it's a horrible system.
it's illegal to do.
It's
so.
illegal to do.
Wow.
And so imagine all these. So then you have women saying, "I can do this." And
I
we
want to
have-
do this and
we have
help
so
this
many
person.
army wives or people who are like, I'm able to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm good at being pregnant,
Yeah.
and I can contribute and support my family in this way,
And
and I
it's
can help bring
illegal.
another family. Why wouldn't I want
Right.
to do this? And so
So you can do it altruistically in Canada, but you can't be paid.
you have to volunteer.
And I think the important thing when I'm dealing with a surrogate and trying to, see if this is the right person for something like this, we have to understand that motivations are multifaceted and multi-layered
Mhm.
for all of us, for anyone, for
Mhm.
you picking me as your partner's husband. Like everything is multi-layered. So, and that's okay. That's just called living in planet Earth, right? I think the question is the balance of those things, right? If someone is just purely financially motivated, they're not going to take the same care with the actual thing they're doing. They're going to they can try and cut corners. They're going to try and find ways to just, how do I get to this endpoint financially with minimal changes in what I want to do and how I want to live? Then there are people who understand the gravity of it and who understand the impact they're making in someone's life. Just like if you're doing, a different type of job and you are doing it just for money, or you understand the impact you're making and put yourself into it a bit, right? And so I think that there's always a balance. You can't ever take away that there's a financial component, right? But if you strike the right balance, you can actually get a great person who's going to do the right thing and do right by you and your family. And a lot of that has to do with the support system they have, which contributes to the level of desperation they're coming at this with.
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
That's
We had
the level of desperation, I think, is a very important
we had a
aspect.
surrogate recently who on paper would have been like an A+++ surrogate. And so but when she came into the clinic and met with Arnold and our team, it was clear that she had some characteristics of her personality that that personally really didn't align at like a moral level with our patient. And so it turned out that surrogate just wasn't a right fit because of just some of the things she said that have nothing to do with her medically. She just didn't. We're like, that's something that isn't going to align with our patient.
Interesting.
And it's like on paper, that should have been a perfect surrogate.
Right.
But you go further.
But there is who this person is at their core is very important to our patient.
Yeah.
So we couldn't move forward with that surrogate and we could not give
It's not a match.
It wasn't a match.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because any other place, they're just matching up.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's so
and this
interesting
is like,
because
no,
it's like
we know
this
this.
went
here
the
you
extra
go.
mile.
It was it.
Yeah, there's like this whole thing for it to work well, for everyone to be happy in the end. It's all about relationships. So it's an extremely relationship driven thing, which is why we do so much third party, because
so much screening.
People aren't really doing that. Like they're not really understanding that it's about those relationships. And so, the very good people are, right? There's good people out there, but the majority of like the corporations who occupy our space now are not really they're not really focused on that part. And it makes a huge difference in the outcome if we maintain those relationships, navigate them well. And if they're in place, fundamentally, if a relationship is in place and it's a good one, it means that it says something about the people who are party to that relationship.
We work with good people. Yeah. And I think what you're seeing is like a thematic around everything we're saying at every level is we're mitigating risk. So Arnold at every point is eliminating and extracting something that could cause risk to the outcome of having a healthy family.
Yeah.
And so it's not just medically that he's talking about, it's emotionally, financially. Maybe it's something that's going on where we're like, there's going to be a conflict here between these two personalities. So at every point, we're taking out the points that are going to cause stress or cause a problem. And we're eliminating problems to make this as easy and simple as possible.
We'll have a good outcome for everyone.
We want a good outcome.
Well, and I think what I'm getting
from being in I'm like, aren't you tired of like being in everybody? Like it's a
big,
it's a lot.
It's a big undertaking.
Emotional.
It's a big undertaking.
It's a big undertaking.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing that, I don't know, I say at Beverly Hills Babies is a very beautiful thing that we're doing. I think I play a very small role in it, but what Arnold does every day, it's like we go, I was in church on Sunday and I was literally like just praying for like our patients, for the care, for my husband's hands. I know that sounds crazy, but like I really take this seriously. Yeah. Like this isn't a small undertaking.
No, and
I joke and I wear my leopard and my heels, but like we're making babies.
It's serious, but like families. You guys go above and beyond to get to know the families. Like you're so much more than a fertility
because we're
clinic.
A family.
You're a family.
We have
helping to create
mean the world to us. And we know how important it is to have this.
Right.
It's also, the whole thing is easier, honestly. It's harder and it takes more time.
You're a shitty person.
But it's easier in that like it's actually very difficult. It depends who you are, I guess. But
you're being authentic to who you guys are.
It's difficult when people are frustrated and sad and miserable. Like it's just difficult to have to navigate that when you don't have control over what their process is. And so that's why I did this, because we now don't have to deal with that because we just mitigate it, and then it's very easy to
there's
solve.
obviously things that we can't control that sometimes people don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not often our Beverly Hills Babies, but sometimes people don't get pregnant. There's things we cannot control and have to solve for. Other than those, everything else should be taken out that's going to affect the process negatively. Yeah. That's kind of the ethos of what we're trying to do.
Well, everyone I'm sure would want to come into the clinic. Maybe everybody cannot come into Beverly Hills Babies. You guys also have an app. And I would love to know what the app offers that's different from if you were to go in person. Do you recommend both? Like, are
totally different?
Totally different things.
Totally different. Like we would never in a million years say that what we can do in our digital experience can replace an experience you're having at Beverly Hills Babies.
Okay.
That being said, it's an incredible preconception tool. I would say if you want to have a baby, if you want to undergo IVF care, if you know that you're going through fertility care, or if you just are totally fine and want to have a healthy pregnancy, this is a tool that helps get your body ready and understand what's happening with your body to get you prepared for a great, healthy pregnancy. So that is what the
So
app
any woman
offers.
can be using this.
Any woman, and this is for females. And so this is something that we have for the women who are trying to get their bodies right for pregnancy, based on not just the learning of what we did with my own body, but what Arnold did to prepare many of his patients to help have healthy pregnancies or healthy fertility treatments. When you're going through IVF, you need your body ready and its best shot at taking that pregnancy and making it healthy and survive.
So even if you're at a different clinic, you could
even if you're at a different clinic, definitely use our app. But I would never, I hope I described that well. It's an extension of the care you would get if you sat down with Arnold as a friend and we're like, Arnold, I want to get pregnant. What should I do? And it will also screen you for if there probably is an issue. You'll go through a medical diagnosis and it will tell you that these are certain supplements you need to be on, or maybe you do need to see a fertility clinic and you're not going to waste 6 months. It's going to tell you, we've seen something that would indicate you probably do need to see a doctor.
But that's huge.
But so it's essentially
digital,
you sit down with Arnold as your friend and you sit down and ask him, hey, Arnold, I want to get pregnant. I know you're a friend of mine. What can I do? This would be a comprehensive consultation. Arnold has at dinner all the time.
So it was, I'd say that it was developed as a digital extension of the work that I was doing, in that, you have an approach to getting pregnant, where you're not going to come into a clinic. You're trying on your own. You want to optimize your health.
Yeah.
You want to try at certain times in your cycle. You want to be, doing certain types of exercise, different parts of your cycle. You track your ovulation. We have data streams that come in through your Apple Watch or your Oura Ring that we can use to help more accurately predict what's happening in your body. And all that functionality is actually totally free. And it was really developed as a tool that we can, that I can plug into my own practice.
Our patients
use it. Our patients do use it, and then also allows it to kind of break off a little bit. And people who aren't in a practice can also take advantage of the digital part.
Awesome.
That is huge. I'm sorry. I just think that's so big to be able to have that digitally. And I was even just talking to one of my friends who's considering getting pregnant. And I'm like, you need to go in before you want to start trying next month. Like you need to look at your body and see. And
just like,
yeah. And they found things that are not right. And so to be able to have that access to you digitally to ask, or even I think a lot of women don't understand the basics of their ovulation process and like when I should be trying and am I ovulating? Like when should I be having sex during these times? So to have that is huge.
Well, Arnold also can't see all the patients. So right now there's a patient.
How many patients? Yeah.
So right now he's
on a wait list.
Right now you can see Arnold.
From the comfort of your home on our YouTube podcast.
You can come to Beverly Hills Babies, drarnold.com. Everyone can go there. And the patients that he's taking, because of the nature of how he does the practice that he's doing, he can't see everybody. Yeah. So like I said, but so many people just want to have a conversation with him. All my girlfriends calling me, Arnold, how do I get pregnant? Everyone we know, it's my sister's cousin's nephew.
I think I DM'd you. You're like, book
everybody.
Appointment.
No, I don't say book an appointment. I say use
on the app.
Yeah. Because this is what we're replacing is that first. Like we go for dinner and a new girlfriend sits down with Arnold and he's like the half of the dinner. We haven't even gotten to the mains.
Right.
And Arnold's done a full fertility consultation. And I was like, this can be replicated.
Yes.
And then we have a beautiful systems that he's created. We're deeply interested in how technology can make the process better. And so we have an incredible system for our patients internally. They use the app. And then we also have a patient portal that is a really beautiful way to keep them informed, where they're having constant information. They don't have to be calling the clinic saying, I wondered if you got in this information. Did it come back? Everything's in the portal. So like I said, again, we're making the system as seamless, as easy, as stress-free as possible because there's enough stress in it already.
Yeah.
Arnold, do you guys take insurance or are you concierge?
No.
All outside.
Yeah.
So if somebody, because I'm sure that we're going to have people that are like, I can already think of some people that we know that are like, oh my God, okay.
Well, we take the fertility insurance, don't we?
For the way she's at, no, like for all intents and purposes.
No, for all intents and purposes.
No.
Yeah.
So if somebody is wanting to see you, do they have to be in the LA area or do they have to fly in and be like staying for weeks?
We have patients.
We have patients from all over the country.
All over the world.
Yeah, and the world. I think that it really depends on what your specific issue is and, if it makes sense for you to do that, right? So, So I'm pretty clear as to whether, like you need me or if
not everybody needs this level of care.
Yeah. Like if you can just kind of, like if you are 29 and you just had your tubes tied at 25 and you have a new partner and you need to do IVF, you probably just do it on your corner, whoever is there. Right.
Right.
But
I'm
At
dead.
the local
Because
gas
honestly,
He goes, go to one of those regular guys. Is what
that
he's
is
saying.
like what it's turning out to every like other building. I'm like,
No, he's like,
fertility.
Right.
Like,
just
this
go to
is
the
just
quarter
crazy.
and get it from whoever.
Oh my God, I die.
But like, there's different levels of complexity, right?
Sure.
There's different, whether it's the complexity is because of your medical situation or whether it's because of the need for a bunch of third-party components, right? And then as things get more complicated, that's when a totally boutique concierge-focused thing can make a big difference in outcome.
Yeah.
And then, or if you have like really unique needs for privacy, we obviously have patients where the setup makes it very compatible, especially here in Los Angeles,
Right.
which is really useful for people who want and need total privacy. Like we always go back to that story of Khloe Kardashian. She was having a surrogate, having a baby with Tristan Thompson, their second child. And the story, obviously she was going to be with a great doctor at a wonderful place, right? But the story got leaked because there's just so many people in the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so
You
like
don't have
it
that.
goes through so many hands and it's like, you don't have that.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of reasons, and it's not just celebrities who need privacy, a lot of people need or desire privacy
Right.
in this process. And so it's good for that.
Arnold, one last question that I did not
Sure.
ask that I meant to. I feel like so many women in their 30s and even a little bit earlier are doing egg freezing.
Mm-hmm.
And some
Yeah.
of my friends are like 34, 35, and they're getting their eggs frozen. And they're like, I got, wait, I want you to go there because, well, what? I don't know what.
He's like,
Okay, because some of my friends are like, I got 8 eggs. And I'm like, okay, but I know that like out of those 8 eggs, only maybe half of those may go to embryos and maybe only half of those may be tested to be viable. Like
Right.
you may only have one baby from
Right,
that. But
right.
so, and I also think, is this
So-
just a business we're doing by like,
Yeah. I mean,
Tell me.
So yes, it is.
it is.
that's why I
So-
was like, get it.
So,
babe.
so I think that, that's so egg freezing. So it's a kind of a big subject, right?
I know, I'm sorry to do
Does
this
egg
to you at the end. I
freezing-
was
No,
gonna
no,
be like,
it's
where do
okay.
they find you? I want to talk egg freezing.
I think it's an important thing. I mean, does it have utility? Of course it does. Just like any tool we have, right? Are there certain cases where, it definitely is the right thing to do? Yes, right? It's kind of positioned now in a way where, you have anxiety around the fact that you want to have a baby eventually, maybe, but you're not in a position to. And the sell is basically, well, give us money, do this procedure. And then now you no longer have to have anxiety about that. You can go on and live your life totally normally. And the fine print says, well, it might not work. It says all the things that you just said, right? But what they're receiving is that, okay, now I don't have to worry about it. I think that this does a disservice to people personally. The technology is better now than it was before, but there are many people who have thawed eggs and then, not ended up with a baby and not ended up with embryos.
But they've
Oh, because they
relied
don't
on
survive the
this.
thaw.
Yeah. And now
I
they're
mean,
too
there's all
old.
these
But
different
they're-
things.
Well, they're
It's
just
like,
5 years
oh, don't
later-
worry, I'm going to be
Yeah,
fine.
they've
But
been
it's a
told
false security
They've been
blanket.
told that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's and so of course in those cases, right? I mean, the number may have been said, oh, this percentage or this percentage, right? But I don't think people are computing that in terms of understanding that, okay, I may end up in this position where this happens to me, right? And now I need an egg donor to have a baby.
And this was all for naught.
And it was all for naught. And I think that the problem is that when you end up in that position, you aren't like the having a baby is not really for most people. It's like if you imagine yourself in that position, would any percentage have been like totally fine? Like, oh, I'm fine with that, like X percentage that I might be in that position. Most women would say,
No,
not
thank you.
really.
I'm not taking that.
not really, right? And so I think that that's a bit of a disconnect that does
Yeah.
exist. Of course I freeze eggs for people. Of course, for people who that makes sense, but we talk about this, right?
Mhm.
And we make sure it's pretty clear. I'm very much of the opinion, someone who works with this technology every day, that you're always better off taking advantage of your natural fertility. Always. And part of the reason for that is because when you're in that age group, then we can actually, if it doesn't work, then we can actually do stuff because you're still at an age where we can do IVF.
You're not
Make
42
things-
without egg quality.
or 44 or whatever it is, right? So I think that, yes, it's a tremendous technology that can be very useful, especially if you have cancer, if you have some true reason you cannot have a baby in a certain time frame, and it's absolutely something that would never happen for you, and you want to have some
Sure.
chance at having your own eggs in the future. Like there are reasons to do
It
it.
shouldn't just be given to every
But it
Google employee to
shouldn't-
keep them working and
Kind of.
it's like
Yeah,
basically what
kind
they're
of.
offering now.
Yeah, I
Just,
think
yeah, like,
so.
and I think like,
Yeah.
Or at least people should understand all of this.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, I
This
think
should be the
don't.
conversation.
I
They
think the
don't.
issue is like
Right.
as women, I feel like there's a ton. I am definitely a feminist woman. I'm a strong, independent woman. And so in that, I am targeted with all of this information about what I need to do and how I have so many options. And like, actually, no, our bodies are not changed. It is hard to have a baby after a certain age. You can't just always rely on all of these things. Like there's some fundamental things that aren't going to change. Even if you tell me and put like a girl boss ad behind it. No, that's not true. And so I try to break that down as a woman who is all of those things. I try to make it
A
clear,
little
like,
dose of reality.
can we have some
Yeah.
reality here?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I know it's of the more like, it's maybe less controversial to say that every woman has all independence to have a baby however she wants. But I hate that on the other side of it, we see women in our clinic who are like, but I was told this.
Yeah.
It's like,
Heartbreaking.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want people to know the reality.
Yeah, and it may not change your decisions, right?
Right.
It may
Yeah.
not
Sure.
change how you just, like, because when you find a partner,
Or you may not have a choice. You haven't found the
Yeah.
partner.
but it may change your decisions if you have the right information. So it's not on the side of, whether you have the right to make your reproductive choices or not. I mean, that's not what this is about. It's about medical fact.
Yeah, that's my.
And it's about,
it.
just having that information. So then you actually make your decisions from
Having
a-
all the knowledge, then
informed
you go.
place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Informed. There we
Yeah.
go.
That's
There we
what
go.
we're here to do. Share all the real information. Where can everybody find your app, your clinic, your
Sure.
socials?
Just
your hot wife,
drarnold.com.
Dr.
Arnold.com.
Arnold, your hot wife.
drarnold.com and then he's Dr. Arnold MD. I'm Luxurious Roxy.
on Instagram.
We're on Instagram. We're
Just make it. We're just out here
Around.
making babies.
making babies
need
and
us,
making
families.
If you
if
need
you need
us,
us, you'll
reach
find
out.
Follow
us.
along.
Yeah.
If you need us,
It's kind
you'll
of like
find
an
us.
if you know,
Yeah, if you need
practice.
us, you'll find
There's
us.
no big
Don't
ad
worry.
campaigns.
Right.
But otherwise, it's if you know. Someone told you
So
because they
badass.
got pregnant.
That's
Oh
awesome.
my gosh.
What is that guy who did Kris Jenner's facelift? We're that guy.
Oh, Dr. Steven.
Yes,
Yes.
Levine.
Yes.
You're the Stephen Levine of babies.
There we go.
That's
It is.
I love
Well,
that.
There's no big fancy gigantic office.
No.
There's
Oh,
a
God.
beautiful
Just
little
the
office.
product to show.
There's some
Yeah.
babies.
Mhm.
Well, they have cute pajamas. I mean, they have custom pajamas for our patients.
We've
We
got
do,
that.
we do.
There is some.
Thank you guys
there is
so
some
much. This was
clues.
amazing.
Thank you
Dr.
for
Arnold,
having
we
us.
could talk to you
Thank
forever.
you.
Thank you for having
Very
us.
It's fun.
dangerous.
Yay. Go
You're
babies.
great. You could